place was the New London School in Texas. The date was the 18th of March, 1937. The event was the deadliest ever to take place in a US school building. Despite the Great Depression, New London was a prosperous town, thanks to an oil find 7 years earlier, and the school had been constructed for the princely sum of $1 million. But still, shortcuts were taken. To save money, the natural gas contract had been cancelled, and a tap had been installed into a residue gas line. This would be the school's undoing. Being odourless and colourless, leaking gas had been causing the students headaches but was undetected until that Thursday afternoon in March. Triggered by the switching on of an electric sander, the explosion destroyed the school, killing at least 300 people. The blast actually blew the roof off the school. As it crashed back down, it caused the entire building to collapse. Aid was swift and plentiful, with parents, the Texas National Guard, and even Boy Scouts taking part in the heartbreaking task of recovering the bodies. One mother didn't make it, succumbing to a heart attack on discovering her daughter had been literally blown to pieces. Even reporters were drafted in to help. A young Walter Cronkite was on one of his first assignments and was later to say, "I did nothing in my studies nor in my life to prepare me for a story of the magnitude of that New London tragedy. Nor has any story since that awful day equaled it." And this was from a man who would later cover the Second World War and the Nuremberg trials. 2 years later, a new school was completed, which kept the name New London until 1965. Since then, it has been known as the West Rusk High School. A lawsuit brought against the gasoline company and the school found neither could be held responsible. But some good did come of the tragedy. To prevent such a thing from ever happening again, it was ruled that strong-smelling thiols be added to natural gas so that any leaks could be discovered quickly. It was a practice that soon took off around the world. On the 29th of October 1932, 3 years to the day after the Wall Street crash, the most powerful steam turbo-electric propelled passenger ship ever constructed was launched in front of 200,000 people lining the banks of the Loire River in France. But the infamous place associated with the French line's SS Normandy would be on the other side of the world, New York Harbour to be exact, in 1942. After the fall of France in 1940, the US government seized the Normandy, and in 1941 the Navy decided to convert her into a troop ship called the USS Lafayette. But on the 9th of February the following year, as she was moored at Manhattan's Pier 88, the sparks from a welding torch ignited the KAPOK used to stuff the thousands of life jackets stored in the first-class dining room. With the ship's fire protection system disabled during the conversion, the fire spread rapidly, and the hoses of the New York City Fire Department did not fit the ship's French-designed inlets. All on board abandoned ship. As firefighters on shore and in fireboats poured water on the flames, the ship developed a dangerous list to port due to the greater amount of water being pumped onto the seaward side of the vessel by fireboats. The ship's designer, Vladimir Yorkovich, had been at the scene and had suggested opening the seacocks, thus flooding the lower decks and causing the ship to settle the few feet to the bottom of the dock. Thus stabilized, water could be pumped into the burning areas without the risk of capsize. However, this suggestion was not acted upon. Around 2:45 a.m. the next morning, the ship capsized, crushing a fireboat as she went over. It was a year before the expensive salvage operation could finally right the Normandy, but the proposed restoration was deemed simply too costly. Yorkovich wanted to restore her in a cut-down version, but could find no backers for his plan. She was sold to the salvage company for just over $160,000 and scrapped a mere 4 years later.